Hit record now. So we'll see if we can pick up where we left off.
Is it enabled?
Yeah, you should be good.
Yep. Good to go. Oh, there's a whiteboard.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
If you want.
No, not yet. I don't know how to use it. Yeah, this is where we left off, right? We left off with making ego being a single kind of entity or a mechanism more than anything else. We're giving it a useful definition here. Not like this arbitrary item that's just got these properties that we just assume that are there. It's just these sound bites coming together into a unit, which give us the agent. The agent being another unit within the matrix. Matrix being a whole fabrication of reality, if you will, in terms of a meta-narrative, mythological one.
Right.
That is composed of the same sound bites, except in a much more mythological sense.
Yeah, those are like more worldview, I guess. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So this is like our aforementioned reality tunnel that everybody likes to argue, is it there or only the other side has it?
Right.
And you know what? Like, I want to make another comment that all of this is not so much as is. 1 second.
Yep.
Where's my mute? Dagnabbit. Just before I could give him the business, the kid did what he was supposed to.
Oh, good.
All right, moving on. Yeah, it's a simple short diagram. It's not actually meant to.
It's not meant to what? You just cut out.
Reflect. It's not meant to represent the runaway process. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're back. It's good.
Okay. So again, we're looking at a situation that's actually quite normal, not dysmorphic in and of itself.
Right.
Right. So it's not that the market machine is like this evil machine or any of that kind of stuff. It's just and the sound bites and the mythologies and whatever are a part of the natural cycle.
Right.
You have all these different interacting agents in the spectacle, right?
Yeah.
Comprising the matrix, if you will. So again, we're not like trying to discuss this as itself a bad thing. What we're discussing is when this market machine is like the only remaining constituents of the makeup of the abstract phase space. And it would be the case if the entire problem of counting isn't countered, so to speak, when the entire categorization of objects into different types and different categories, if that's not constrained, then it being a very, very easy mechanical gimmick to identify with any kind of object in your perception, any kind of object in the spectacle. When you start to assign that association with this machine, with this cogs of these machines, everything transforms into these sound bites and mythologies that keep perpetuating just that portion of it.
The positive feedback loop.
And then that becomes a runaway process, and when that runs away, that's when you get the dysmorphic situation. And this is the whole point of back quote unquote in the day to go through a sort of a coming to age ritual is just to sort of stave off the need
The comforts.
to keep yourself, yeah, keep yourself from running away, and let in the culture sort of keep you at bay, so you don't get ahead of yourself, put the cart before the horse, so to speak. Just the entire process of growing up, right? So what seems to have happened is that we've removed that from the individual and placed a system that is apparent supposed to replace that component for us, so to speak. But because of that, because there's never a feedback lesson to say, okay, this is just part of the whole. It's not. You should view the abstract space with more more nuance, I guess you could say, with the rest of the other archetypes together. The uncertainty, the entropy that's involved, all of that stuff.
Right.
Then the picture becomes very different. It's harder. Like the market machine can easily neglect it by just substituting numbers, right?
Yeah. So
That's
this is a
kind
problem
of
of reification, I think, when you mistake the map for the terrain itself. So this is a problem of projecting our map of reality onto our experience around us, and mistaking that map for being what we're projecting onto.
So in this case, the map being the market machine map, and the market machine map happens to be a very isolated component of a very, very much broader whole.
Right.
And it's trying to represent this whole, and it cannot do so.
Right, and it's a good point to say that this is not a bad thing, and we keep having to say that, I think, because it seems like a normal reaction to sort of, I guess, get triggered by something, or to be looking at something in a sort of nemesis stance or an oppositional stance, or something outside of you. So what we're really trying to explain is something that's within anybody and everybody, processes that are universals, we might call them.
Yeah. And it's not at all surprising to be caught up in the runaway process, because we're not born with like an innate knowledge of any of this. And so by the time we grow up, even if collectively, like, sure, nature constrains us to some extent, and it did for a long time, that you had to just overcome these kinds of stuff, overcome these kinds of things, but it never meant that you could explain it all, or you could pass that knowledge on efficiently in any way, because again, the mediums wouldn't have really been there. You wouldn't have spent your time making one, because again, nature would have constrained that. It's more about the. 1 second, please.
Yep.
Sure, for fun. We get to stay children if this process runs away, basically.
Yep.
The thing I was saying is that we're not born with inherent knowledge of any of this, and so it's very easy to be caught up in this, even if you have the constraints of society. Once you remove the whole natural sorry. Oh, sorry. Once you remove these constraints in the form of natural constraints, right? They're constraints. Sorry, no. There's the hierarchy, and then there is the concerns, right? Once you remove the constraints of the concerns themselves, um, you have this delayed effect of the consequence, right? So you
Okay,
have,
you're talking about mediation of the life form stack or whatever.
yeah. Going back to the entire
Removing responsibilities. This is where the
yeah,
market machine is coming in and giving you certain avenues for
yeah, it creates a space.
society to take care of parts of your life.
Exactly. And by what I mean by creates a space, it creates a delayed reaction to consequences. Um,
Right.
so things stop being apparent immediately.
Yeah.
They're not really. And then you top that off with more and more and more delays of various sorts, various kinds. Due to various activities, right? Like this improves, that improves, another piece of machinery, another piece of medicine, and so on and so forth. It
Right.
keeps
We're
that,
basically talking about the plateaus, the
yeah,
progression through the
and
plateaus.
so and so consequence and action become completely disconnected from each other in terms
Right.
of when, how, why. This is the point where you get these grand religions coming in and talk about karma and sin and all of that, but all of that is actually more of a consequence of this delay, and it wasn't experienced that way before, and so
Right.
there was no language for it before.
Yeah. Becomes like a black box of karma.
Yeah, and you can't follow it. You couldn't possibly tell what's this bad deed, quote unquote, is causing this bad effect over here because there's this
Right.
huge delay. There's delay between people. There's delay between objects. There's delay between time. By delay,
Yeah.
I'm talking about
It's a
distance.
generational thing even.
Oh yeah,
Certain responsibilities cast off by our ancestors and taken up by the system, whatever.
yeah, and then reintegrated back through just arbitrary labels of all things.
Yep. Yeah, so that's an interesting point though, that the whole when trying to express much of this, we come across that that idea that in whoever you're speaking with, they get this idea formed that you're describing an enemy or something that's
Hmm.
bad, right? Because we say, oh, there's agents in this. It's not. We have to get over that, I think. And what
Absolutely.
in much of these cases, all we're doing is trying to describe in the most generic way the universals of what we're seeing in
Yeah,
behavior.
agency in this case is the sense of feeling you have an I, you have a me. There's a you going on.
Right.
Like, it's how is that a terrible thing?
Yeah. Coupled with that, the um, the reality tunnel or whatever that says, okay, I played this part in this system, right? I'm going to
Sure,
move forward as an agent. You're doing an action.
but that's not necessarily bad. Like your story could be like the mythology, right? That it's a stuff. Like even if you pick up the hero's journey, you're still picking up a mythology for yourself, a matrix for yourself, and all of those kinds of things.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and
so
again, it's not bad. It's like I'm hungry, so I'm going to the store or whatever.
yeah, so all of these are just mechanics. They're not. But there's again the issue at hand is not the mechanics; it's the runaway processes that can happen out of those mechanics.
Right.
One of them we've seen very much so in affect, which is the underlying mechanisms that drive this. Um,
hmm
so this is a correlated diagram, very much so.
Yeah. So you end up collecting all of these sort of agencies into one giant life framework. And the problem is that many of these are runaway processes that we're not looking into. Many of them also are interfacing with affect, right? Pleasure,
Yeah,
pain.
and it goes back to here, obfuscation of the meta narrative, right there,
hmm
right? And it all becomes about these little things that if you notice they don't really connect to one another, right? That's not their relationship. they're just like a reiteration of this one bubble over here, through various artifacts that you get over here. Um, so that's the whole soundbite thing, and they're disconnected. They're like self-contained little things that are easy to digest. They're just little pieces of code, right? Like a small algorithms,
Right.
right? And again, ego is like the collection of those algorithms, putting them together. It's just a mechanism. It's just a Frankensteinian kind of mechanism, right? It's not. It doesn't have. It doesn't itself. It doesn't have an objective here. It's just something that happens. Because again, you can't like run blind. Your mind can't run blind on information, right? It has to put it together somehow.
Right.
And so this is kind of like taking all of the available sound bites that you got, which is a process of this obfuscation. In the runaway system, it would be very obfuscated. And the ego just does what it can to put it all together and create a sense of agency in the world, which is, of course, here. Matrix being the representation of this world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a very convoluted little bit. And this part is of the cosmological counterpart to the whole thing, where the agents happen to find themselves in relationship to this matrix.
Yeah, I suppose you always need bigger context.
Well, I'm progressing the myth of progress as a society.
Yeah. So the myth is always seems to be hooking into the self and the place in the world.
Mhm.
It's not a specific agency.
Right, and this is why you get like the religious myths are always surrounding the human. You know, like God is about humanity, only humanity, for humanity alone. That's where you get this kind of solidification of the concept. If you especially when you're not meditating and paying attention on all that jazz, as you're trying to do this or explain. So it's so, and you can see the self-justification happening, naturally occur in self-justification through all of this. Again, nothing to be surprised about. It's nothing to mock. Nothing to
Yeah.
just to acknowledge that it can go really incoherent.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the opposite would be nihilism. Like there's no meaning to any of it, and that can basically lead to death.
Well, Neil, this can capture nihilism pretty well because it's such a closed loop, right? It's tiny, tiny, tiny. All the meaning of everything.
Right. No, I'm kind of, I guess, getting at something maybe a bit deeper, that even if you say, oh, there's no meaning in anything, if you're still getting up and going to work or doing something, like if you're still existing, you're given a worldview to yourself somehow. Something is making you go, right?
Mm-hmm. It's just a lack of identification with it, or a lack of not that I'm for identification per se, but look, it's a lack of identifying the relationship to those things. Yeah. So
Yep.
So this is the meta-narrative fragmentation as I see it so far. How the matrix is formed. How it's not the worst thing in the universe. It's just another component.
Yep.
What we don't want is Agent Smith taking over everything, and that's about it. Because that's the whole problem. That's actually the metaphor there, right? When in the movie, the whole idea behind Agent Smith becoming everybody else, right?
Right.
He takes over the body itself, as it were,
Right.
and duplicates himself. It's when you get these monotone agencies, right? That's where you get these like really uniformed, monotone, we're number one sort of situation. It's really just a comment about that, and the whole battle to stop that from happening is really the
Hmm.
struggle, of of the individual, of not becoming those
Right. Yeah.
monotone.
To have that sort of that internal, the feedback process. And so I was just thinking to define Agent Smith as as an agent of positive feedback reinforcement of the models which are contained within the agent, to exterminate anything else, to increase
That would be
efficiency
a negative feedback.
of the system. Um, but from the system's point of view, I suppose, yeah. Okay, yeah. So negative, right?
Negative in the sense that the effects would be this the loop of the effect would stop reinforcing, and so that effect would stop happening more. Uh, Positive reinforcement is the
Yeah,
increase of something.
yeah.
So this would decrease the effect of the market machine in favor of other kinds of machineries, right? And the machinery that you would want is the one closer to the entire stack of the model, instead of just the one concept, which is arbitrary categorization.
Hmm. Yeah. So okay. So negative feedback, the hunter-seeker algorithm, whatever, of the system,
Mhm.
to snuff out model.
Yeah, it's not set model for sake of efficiency, right? It just wants to be like, okay, I'm this agent. This is the myth. This is the myth. We're just going to take the narrative, run with it, cling to the narrative, just run with the narrative.
Hmm.
Stop stopping and changing the narrative,
Right,
right?
and that's part of a positive feedback loop, though, right?
Right. There's a pleasure effect in there. There's the addiction effect in there.
Right.
The learning part is in the stopping. It's the
Yeah.
habitual.
Yep. Dopamine, definitely. Whenever we kind of successfully project a model.
Yeah, it works and it works. And to be clear again, it's a powerful model. Like the market machine is an extraordinarily powerful model to be able to do a lot of different things with, but it doesn't actually portray anything whether it should or should not be done. It doesn't have any. It doesn't have any ability to discern that.
Right. Yeah, and so again, I think that the market machine is a natural phenomenon of
Oh yeah, it's completely
participation.
integrated. It's a phenomena that comes back to the fact that we can count. And the fact that we can count means that we can give arbitrary labels to things. And the
Right.
fact that we can give like 1, 2, 3, right? We can name your number 1,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
number 3. All of a sudden, we're talking about a value that somebody fulfills rather than that person himself, right? It becomes about that value. So
Hmm.
people will start competing for being number 1 instead of
Well,
others
fine,
opposed.
but even if you have a relationship that's new, that you don't know
About
somebody yet.
simplified scenario to drive a point across. I'm not talking nuance here.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It comes back to that thing again that we were just talking about, putting a bad light on things sometimes. It's easy to give that impression.
Oh no,
Whereas you would, if you didn't know somebody yet and you want to, say,
uh,
oh, do me a favor and I'll do you a favor kind of thing. It's an exchange, right? You're using that market machine because you don't trust them enough to kind of
yeah,
go more nuanced.
it certainly works because it can it's the it works because there's a kind of an exchange in the world that happens that's parallel to it, right? There's an isomorphism
Hmm.
between it and some mechanics in the
Yeah,
universe at large.
it's
Uh,
just such a weird meditation to keep having to come back to that it's not a bad thing, it's a natural thing. It's maybe a lower coherence, but it's something that you can use to build upon, and with the proper feedback, it can be steered in a healthy direction.
But without the same mechanics, you wouldn't have the actual structures of the body itself. So I mean, it can't be a bad thing.
Hmm.
This whole numeric categorization, grouping, abstraction process isn't bad because that's what gives you molecules from atoms. It's what gives you chemicals from molecules. It's what's giving you
Right.
from chemicals and so on and so forth.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at here maybe is that there's a certain we can view the model from a part or parts of the model from a participant perspective and say that that's not necessarily bad, but it has a tendency to go completely haywire
Yeah.
until you talk about membership concepts, which can build upon that.
Mhm.
And we see this all throughout the model.
Membership concepts build upon when it doesn't go haywire.
Pardon me?
Membership concepts is when it doesn't build upon
Yeah,
it
right.
going haywire,
Mm-hmm.
or builds upon it not going haywire. Yeah. So. I don't know.
Cool. So anything else about this chart?
I don't know. Like, if there's any kind of questions, I don't have any particular.
Mm-hmm. I guess affect would be built into the soundbite because you kind of like you do this and you'll get this or whatever.
Aspect.
Affect.
Affect. Oh, right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. A soundbite is a narrative, so a narrative would have all of that built in.
Right. Yeah. You listen to the soundbite, it sounds good, and then you do it.
An artifact turn to narrative and all that stuff, but yeah, it goes through the entire stack, of course. But it's basically an artifact. It's something that you can pluck into the world and pick back up.
Right.
Which is incidentally why we can write. So again, call this bad if you want. The problem is that we're trying to attribute everything to these sound bites. Meanwhile, not everything can be used. The soundbite can be used for every
right.
kind of expression.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure where else to take this. It's got a lot of juice, but I think that pretty much covers what we're seeing in the spectacle matrix wise. And yeah.
Cool.
So is matrix a good word now? Good term?
It's fine. We'll take it for now.
All right. So we still have, ooh.
No.
Bothersome individuals, those children.
Yes, it was one of your individuals.
Yeah, there's nothing really to cover. I fixed the diagram. That's about it.
Cool.
What else could we go into then? Yes, I know what we can go into. We've got new stuff over here. So many terms, check it out. Stuff's getting filled in.
I'm good.
Economy is the demand and supply stuff. Agile economics, so that's the initiatives and the fulfillment model.
Yep.
All that project management stuff. So the project management is the part of the archetypes. This is part of the guild. So there you go. That's the difference. Data. So this is where we're getting back into, let me just backtrack here. So we have industry here and we had these, right?
Yep.
And then each one of these it's still subject to change right now. I'm just sort of hashing it out in my head, but it has these tail ends with the lab, the library, the database, and then finally the data center.
Right.
Okay, so these four, the mechanics and the dynamics between them, and all the rules and whatnot, is what this guild is doing. So I got
Yeah.
so I had question marks when I was filling this one out, and then I went ahead and did that one. So there you go. That's sort of how that works out. And basically what we're looking at here is essentially this product progression itself. That's the framework we're using, right? Establishing the mind, establishing written materials, however they come, establishing the heuristics of everything, and finally the units that do all of the stuff, right? Again, the database of everything, data/rules, right? The corporation is where all the data is and where all the rules are.
Right.
So it just works in the same level again.
Sup.
Yeah, so again, the pattern is just broken up 4 times over, basically.
Yeah.
And it's a dashboard and a dashboard and a dashboard and a dashboard, right?
So you're having, so we have four different products, each one broken down into basically what we've done with Portal Mountain, the same type of, you have a place for each temperament, sort of.
Yeah. And then the entire thing taken together, so 4 times 4, so this 16 things taken together constitutes the infrastructure of the industry.
Yep. So we're taking this idea to represented in Portal Mountain and reflecting it, the whole thing wholesale again, as if Portal Mountain is only one of those pieces, being the perceptive.
Yeah, and like the mental component, the inner part.
Right.
So this would be like the journey down, if you will, in terms of the layers.
Okay, now this did change because we did have, so right now dashboard is sitting under, let's say, perceptive, or not perceptive, the pragmatic.
It's more sitting.
And it didn't used to be, because we wrote down a different way that I messaged you on Telegram.
Yeah, I think that was still fresh, and I think from that this came from processing that a bit further.
Cool.
I mean, you feel free to point out the errors if you see them.
Yeah, no, I'm just, yeah, that's exactly, like I'm trying to normalize right now. Like, what's the difference do you see between the dashboard and index cards?
Internal sort of the dashboard and index card.
Yeah.
The levels. A
it's
dashboard,
technology.
yeah,
But
dashboards are automated.
is it fundamentally different on a like perceptive triad basis?
Dashboards land here in this guild. So,
Okay, we're trying to get it to land in one of the 4 HGMA like triad slots. Is that not what we're doing, or?
well, in some ways, yes. So you're trying to assert what's the difference between here,
Yeah.
here, the
Mhm.
guild level. The index card lands here in terms of its in terms of where it can be applied. You only need you only need this level of understanding. Like it just up to the fact that there is technology and how technology is to be utilized. Not like it doesn't have to have any kind of sophistication. It's a pen paper kind of deal is sufficient.
Right.
Whereas here with the dashboard, you're landing into this guild where you're networking systems together.
Right. Okay. So this, the way that that this is organized currently, just reminds me of a just a technological progression, I guess. Not a differentiation based on HDMA triad protocol.
Both.
Okay.
Both. The technological progression is somewhat modeled on that.
Right. I don't really see that. Like concrete, we used to have consulting.
All right. So it has to do with intimacy. If you were to share paper, right? You're interacting in like a common space. You're interacting in like it's a
Yep.
personal thing.
Hmm.
Whereas in dashboard, you're just sending shit off to the ether. You write down a schema card basically, and you just put it in into your dashboard, and away it goes.
Right. But I mean, you could have this dashboard software and it could look like, say, the AO, for example. It could emulate having cards, and yet you're sitting right next to the person using a card system. Do you see what I mean? Like how they're not very different?
The differences is the level of technology involved. Like I was saying, there's a guild jump.
Right, but pragmatics are not more technologically advanced than devotional. Like just because you're in physical concrete space doesn't mean that you're less technologically advanced, right? That those dimensions, they don't line up.
No, think of the bonfire for a second, right? Index cards is like what you throw, which you just post something out there. You take this card and you just like pass it on.
Right, but the index card can be an abstraction. It could be a rule. It could be anything.
That's fine. That's fine. But you can't give that rule. The system you're giving it to can potentially not. It's not integrated into any system. It's like it's a completely different, disconnected from it. It's like somebody has to pick up on code and everything, all of that stuff.
I do fully expect to be able to do that though with the card game.
You can't in the bonfire. You can't expect that you will have the connection.
No, not in the bonfire. I mean, using index cards to convey rules.
I'm telling you what the analogy is. It's the bonfire analogy because you can't actually expect the other person to understand what your card is. There's a huge personal heuristic going on. Whereas in a dashboard, it's an integrated system already. Like that card is going to be like either already coherent or incoherent with the system. It's just going to be like, okay, yeah, do it, right? So we're talking about a completely different level of integration.
fine, but I think I see what you're saying.
Code-wise versus suggestion-wise.
Okay, I want to take the index card game system and be able to eventually use it in that way, as if you can pass a card and have it integrate into the system. Somebody else, you have a shared system or whatever.
Well, yeah, that's evoking the holographic portion of it, right? It's still a holographic product to begin with. So in that sense, you have reflections everywhere, right? You don't. A corporation is a card. The dashboard is a card, and like you can fundamentally you can take that dashboard and that corporation, and well, we did that with not this. One sec. Like when we. Sorry. Yeah, so here's corporation as a card. Right? Like on pen and paper.
Right. Okay.
In the dashboard, which is the computerized version. You know what I mean? Like it's all going on at the same time. It's not necessarily a different thing in that way, like from that perspective that you're talking about. But I'm talking about a different perspective where we're dealing with progression in terms of guilds and stuff. So the first one is the mind, then you get your fingers and body, and then you get your projective neural OS kind of stuff going. Yeah, I don't think I said it right, but something to that effect. Sorry about that. So, yeah, if it still needs a change, I just don't know what to change it to.
Like to me, I think it's fine if we don't try to think of that as HGMA triad, that stack of products, because it doesn't make sense to me as that.
Well, it's more temperamental, not HGMA. The temperament is what I was going by, not HGMA.
Right, which is basically tightly related.
Oh yeah, but that's not the direct isomorphism that was used. So if that was the presumption the entire time, then that's probably where the confusion came from.
Possibly.
I would think so. Where the hell did it go? Why do I have to keep searching? Can you turn it down, please? It's incredibly loud. Yeah. I Man, if this thing responded to my commands, that would be nice. Seriously?
That's for me.
All right, where were we? Trying to find my stuff because apparently it doesn't know how to keep track of actual recent stuff. What? I'm confused. Oh, that's because I'm dumb. There we go.
So what if we went Portal Mountain, corporation, index cards, a dashboard? Does that make more sense? Because to me, corporation seems like a very concrete activity of relationships. And dashboard also seems to me like a reflection of Portal Mountain, but a more the academic side, the investigation of phenomena and all that, or the categorization and the structure of the system. And to me, index card is just the abstracting. Well, I mean, that would be the point to me of more of that, the way that I've thought of it, anyways. Yeah, something like that. Like a card isn't really a program. It's not easily a program. It's more like static pieces, components, abstractions. To me, I think the dashboard is what pulls those together, maybe.
No, you're right. There we are.
Cool.
That's the help I needed.
Better.
Yeah, I still don't like the fact that there's a guide in there because I don't think that's the correct spot for it.
Right. We've already used that too.
So, well, it would have been the same guide. I'm just wondering what it should actually turn into.
Yeah, so we can now look at, well, we can look at breaking these down to their components.
Just like to know that that term, it's not going to stay.
Right. Library could be box according to the game, but it doesn't really matter. Library is probably fine.
Library what?
Could be just called the box, but that's probably less intuitive.
It's fine.
And by the way, you only knocked it up to volume 2. Okay? So 20.
And also the fourth category out of each of these sounds like a sort of static container, which I'm not sure if that's what we should be going for.
Yep, there's a reason for it, and it is what this is.
Right.
So they'd be communicating in a horizontal fashion.
Yeah. So as far as a product goes, and this is really like getting back to our market machine stuff, these are fairly simple systems that have to be operated by somebody, right? You're leaving artifacts, basically. This is a container for artifacts relevant to the particular system.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fine. And so we've got Data Guild. The other natural guilds, which ones do we actually use for this so far?
So far we've gone here, industry, economy, and data. And computing is related via dashboard stuff. So trade and diplomacy still kind of sit on their own. I have thoughts on this. This is what this is going to be.
Right.
That's this like this is just reference.
Yeah.
Let's not get offended, anyone.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
this is the pinnacle. When all of this is actually operating within this, then we'll have let's just say we've conquered the machine instead of the machine having conquered us. We're now balanced together.
Right.
So that's this is how natural guilds will cap it.
Right.
Into purpose and
Yeah. So this is probably common throughout the world that within typically an individual's experience, but we're hoping and expecting to see this manifest in the wild, so to speak, among multiple people, communities, whatnot.
and vector,
Pardon?
different vectors, like different abstractions.
Right. So I'm just curious how this lays out. So we've taken industry, economy, and data. Can you go back to that other, the industry, not industry, but our product progression? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So
Industry drives the infrastructure. That's the idea behind that. So this is the study of our industry.
right. So we have data in the fourth slot.
Yeah, all of these constitute what the data guild is responsible
Data.
for.
Okay, and then in the third slot, what do we have? Account, cards, network. What is that? Is that economy or?
So this is the business that sits between other businesses.
Yes. Yes.
So the infrastructure, the network of businesses, right?
Right.
You can look at it as a structure, like a card of its own, like a unit.
Is this lining up with a particular natural guild?
The actual slot?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm just trying to normalize.
Let me just see. Let me see. Well, there they are.
Right.
No, I don't see anything specific.
Interesting. Okay. So that's a question mark. And then the second one, we've got training, game, forum, bonfire.
That's that happens to be the actual product.
Right. So the concrete slot. Yes.
Yeah, this is more like the who's and the what's, and this is more like the what's being the stuff that they're trading and stuff like that in the market. So these would be like the agents, really. Yeah, makes sense. Representing the agents, and then represents the objects being traded.
Interesting. And how about the first column? Does that line up to any of the natural guilds?
Education.
Right. That's good. Okay. 2 out of 4 ain't bad.
Well, it was never built on that to begin with.
Yeah, I know.
Like this is the part that writes itself, right? That's where that comes from.
Right. My intuition is usually when I see something, I try to normalize the rest of it. Like where.
Oh yeah, same. It's just that in this case, this is probably not the way to go because we're not interested in forming guild connections specifically, we're interested in seeing what's what and where it's coming from. So the fact that two parts are directly responsible, or the responsibility of the guild, is cool. One part is the direct responsibility of the corporation. That's cool. And the third part of it is directly the responsibility of some agent. So that's the system that we have in this case. So agents, guilds, and or, products. Agent, guilds, and corporations, sorry.
Right.
So it's like more convoluted scenario than the kind of you're thinking like that you can normalize. It's like one of those diagrams where everything is interrelated.
Right. Yeah, and I guess that's the point, is to kind of try and link it into other things. Like, we've already established Portal Mountain. We kind of have a pretty solid grasp of what those locations are: Embassy, Bonfire, Obelisk, Lab. And
Yeah, we're basically phase 2 right now in the product development. That being the contact with the transition being that gateway. Index card is kind of like going to be like the information we give away, like the wiki, the conversations, the conversations, right? All of that.
Please don't.
Just the record of stuff, right? The schema is not quite there yet, but we'll get there too. And then dashboard is going to be obviously the other effort I'm into, everything from the dashboard to Scepter and above.
Cool, yeah.
All right, so this is industry. Still there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, so
I'm just looking over this, these 4 products. And again, I just want to note, like, when I see lab is not data to me. That's not, its purpose is not simply a storage of data. So that's abnormal. But we've already kind of talked about that. We don't have to, nothing, it doesn't all.
Where does the lab storage data?
What's that?
Where does the lab store data?
Because it's in the 4th slot of a product.
No, where does a lab store data?
Anywhere.
It's completely integrated into itself. So this slot is supposed to represent data plus rules about data.
Right, that's what I mean.
So there's rules involved. So research and all of that is all data collection and data manipulation. And
right. But then can we extend that when we say plus rules? Can we say, okay, the data center is data plus rules. The
Data
library is
centers
data
are-
plus rules.
Well, data centers are data plus the business rules surrounding that data. A library is data plus all the rules surrounding it, how to find it, how to approach it, how to consume it. Right, like the Dewey Decimal System is an example of that.
Right. This gets more complex in that any of the content within the library is going to be also
So let's not
rule
forget.
bound.
Yeah, and let's not forget it. These are still just abstractions. They're not the concrete buildings that we're talking about. They're just still
Right.
there to cause to stand in for something a bit more concrete after the fact. So when we're talking about a library, we're not necessarily talking about traditional library.
Right.
It could very well be a digital one, for example, or and so. And again, it starts to go from there.
So, so just thinking about these products in very general terms. So, I mean, according to temperament and according to how that relates to like the Neural OS, like Portal Mountain, perceptive, shared. It seems like that's like I think it's great that that's the product, that it's really more ephemeral and like not even a thing really that exists anywhere, but it's more perception based technology. The corporation as the devotional, as the concrete, as what's right in front of you, you could say like the corporation, almost like as we would say the guild.
Mm-hmm.
So I would extend Portal Mountain in that same way, and just to say that it's all Portal Mountain. The corporation is the corporation. And that's to do with relationships and real estate and all that. And then moving abstractly, so we have index cards here, but I wonder if we would call it something like the game, or if that's even appropriate for making abstractions and kind of competing the abstractions from each other. Also lifting abstractions out of concrete experience. There's sort of a game element to it. It's not it's not exactly calculated or calculating. There's a lot of uncertainty involved when you try to lift out abstractions.
I don't know if I would want to call it a game, simply because I don't think that's going to evoke that
right.
understanding.
And so then, yeah, so what I'm trying to get at is, what would we call this part then, if anything? If there's a big grand the something, and the fourth would be the dashboard.
So to me, that slot indicates pen, paper, write stuff down. Look, it's the process of writing the code down, but not the process of reading it, right? So it's kind of like embedding it into the environment for later retrieval. So I guess something to do with memory. You know what I mean? Like storage memory. Not storage specifically, but encoding.
Right.
Modulating. All that. Like artifact fabrication is like really where it's at. This the crafts.
Right. So you're taking your narrative and you're filtering it through a Cosmos or whatever, and you're getting artifacts.
Mm-hmm. You're etching shit into the environment.
Yeah, so there's already abstractions have to be built into that, just even to take anything out of the stream of
Yeah, it
narrative.
has to follow the shape of the artifact, which is again, if you recall the message conversation, the inner outer message, there's a whole
Hmm.
thing to it, envelope message. So like
Right.
the message that I am a message as opposed to noise, the message of like I am in English. So, and as soon as you figure that part out, which is like an implicit message, you get the explicit message of what the English message is saying.
So like maybe we could call it like the artifact.
Hmm.
We don't have to do anything. I'm just trying to like spitball because I don't.
Yeah,
The
you're
thing
right. It's still a little bit too.
the thing I don't like about index cards is because that's arbitrarily limiting it to a 4x6 piece of paper when really you can use anything, including kind of
Yeah. In fact,
computation.
you know what? This entire row can kind of seem as a lot of very kind of questionable right now. So
Right.
why don't we just like figure that row out? We know what it's supposed to be
Right.
by concept, but as far as terminology goes, I don't like guide. You probably don't like game. The cards thing doesn't fit anymore based on what you're saying.
Yeah.
So like the libraries was questioned already.
Right.
So like the entire row seems to have problems. So I'm totally down for changing it as far as the terminology goes. Um,
Yeah, we can have a look at it. Well, that's
mhm.
weird. I have to be there for the background.
Huh,
Very strange.
very useless.
Whoop. Yeah. Cool.
Like if you're trying to actually hide what's behind you, totally useless.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it can stand in for now, but let's just have a look at it. I think that's the one that makes the least sense, kind of.
Well, it
Um,
makes sense, just not. It's just too specific. I think. I think we
yeah.
just generalize it,
Yeah.
and I think once we're done that, we'll have a full-blown industry guild. I mean, we really don't need to be taking care of any further details. That's up to the whole initiative, right? And fulfillment operation. It would just pick things out of this sort of framework and then place the
Sure.
corporations categorized based on that. It also constrains the industry quite well, I would think. Um, like you can't just build shit out of like and pollute everything and just have all of your shit thrown in the garbage afterwards when it doesn't sell.
Yeah, this all seems like kind of generic and abstract enough to sort of uh, encompass the guild or normal guild activities, or at least the core.
Yeah,
So I think that's good. I was just thinking about, so corporation seems fine. Consultation, you have the familiar, basically conversation type thing, the relation between people.
yeah,
Training being a more concrete um, application.
yeah.
Train
Like here's the archetype to follow.
Training could even be operations, though, right? It doesn't. You don't just forever train. Like operations is training, but you're actually doing something in a corporation, right? You're not just training everything.
I think training has to do with being marked on it as well to some extent, right? Like you're expected to be certified after a training session or something or some shit like that.
Right. Um,
So I think that it has more that's not the same thing as chop wood carry water type of stuff where you don't really necessarily look at it from that perspective at all. Here you're trying to fulfill a quota of
okay, yeah. So getting back to the product thing, this is what the corporation does.
Yeah, trains.
Yeah.
So this would be like dojo, you know, like that. That would be like a training facility or a vocational training. You know, like anything that does kind of like all of the you know the guilds that you were talking about, the conventional guilds, like you know the craftsmen and all of that stuff that'll be there.
Mhm.
That's how you would do it.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So this is a specific training. This is
Or,
basically model
yeah.
training.
Yeah, auto mechanics, but that's stuff that you were talking about. That's how you would arrive at having a facility that does that kind of stuff, guild wise. So
Right.
it's under corporation, but that has to do with because it's like it's a reflection of the core, not the core itself, which is internal to the guild dynamics.
Right.
But you still have room for it, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's very tempting to keep trying to universalize when what we're doing is trying to narrow down to specific products.
yeah,
to-
keep
that
in mind
are-
that every corporation is a proximity guild, right?
Right.
So we still have a guild that doing auto mechanics.
Mhm.
We're never letting go of the guild. The entire point is to have an external interface via corporation and an internal interface via guild. So if you're a guild member, right, your interface with this corporation isn't exactly the same as if you're an external participant. I mean, safe for legalese and all that shit.
Hmm.
I think I need to end right now. If you want to continue this a little bit later, we can, but to be fair to everybody else around me, I need
Right.
to get involved.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you want to pause it for a little while or just I don't know,
Let's
it's getting pretty late.
let's
Just
shut it off.
call it.
If we want to continue on, we'll continue. If not, not. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, man. Awesome times.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll continue off on this, just trying to normalize the product next time, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool, buddy.
I think we've normalized the product. We didn't normalize the infrastructure underneath. That's our last remaining piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. Anyways, there's still questions.
And the Guild Institute was the thing that takes care of that infrastructure. So loops complete.
Very good.
All right, man.
All right, I'll stop recording then.